Now, Suzanne Zels heads the European Identity Programme at the Polis180 think tank. Welcome to DW. What's President Macron trying to achieve with his latest big vision, do you think?
It is, of course, a move which he's done prior to an election. He has lately been under a lot of pressure in France itself, and now he has slowly had the time again to focus more on Europe, and has come out with a big call to European citizens, wishing to perhaps also restart a debate, a public debate on European politics and on reforms especially.
But he did this nearly two years ago in the Sorbonne in 2017. That was his first big vision for Europe. Is there much difference between this vision and that vision?
There is a difference. First of all, we can see that he focuses less on economic and social convergence and more on, for example, protection and border controls. And also, it is less of a federal Europe vision than an intergovernmental one. So it maybe has become a little bit more realistic and also shifted in its topics. But yeah, of course, he's already proposed it 2 years ago, but many of the topics which he addressed back then have not been solved. So there was also a need to be looking at these topics again.
So do you think he has changed his mind from the last time? Because, as you say, very little has been achieved of that particular agenda. He got very little support. Nobody seemed to be listening. Is he likely to be more successful this time?
Well, perhaps it is necessary to work close in cooperation with other member states' governments in order to achieve those. That is not what he has done. He has proposed these reforms by himself. He has, however, already been supported by other governments today in calling for these reforms. But in the past, Germany and France have always tried to make such proposals together, which he has not done. And this has been a successful way of reforming Europe or bringing about change in Europe. So I am actually doubtful as to whether this is the best way of actually achieving those reforms. However, what he has done is he has made those topics more visible in the public debate all across Europe again.
Yeah, I think support is putting it a bit strong. The best I've been able to see from world European leaders today is that they talk about it being a great opportunity to talk about the issue rather than supporting the points that he raises. I mean, we'll have a look at a couple. The Czech Republic, for instance, is not a fan of these proposals. The Prime Minister, Barbock, is quoted as saying, "I have noticed that when France says more of Europe, she in fact means more of France, but that is not the way. We are all equals in Europe." And then here's the co-leader of Germany's Green Party, Annalena Barbock.
The German government must finally wake up from its hibernation in European politics. At the moment, it's busy trying to shoot down European projects, such as introducing a digital tax or whistleblower protection.
So, Suzanne Zels, how hard a sell do you think this is going to be for the French president? I mean, especially on the issue of migration.
On the issue of migration, we've seen in the past that there was no move by many member states on finding a common line on how to deal with not only border protection but also asylum seekers. And this will probably be one of the issues where we still need a lot more talks before we can see a common solution. However, such a move of proposing it and demanding it again is necessary. And there is, of course, some countries which will oppose it, but there is also support, for example, by Germany in such initiatives.
And defence comes up again. This has been much talked about over the last couple of years. He uses his letter to talk about a European army, talking about an increased defence spending, what he called a truly operational mutual defence clause and a European Council with the UK on board. Now, when you listen to that, one wonders, well, why talk about all that when you already have that in NATO?
Well, we have seen that NATO, even though it is a very essential part of defense for Europe, is, because of the president in the US, Trump, become a little bit less something that Europeans want to rely on. At least we have had a debate in the past about how we have our own defense or security interests, which we also need to be capable of achieving by ourselves.
What are the European defence interests outside of NATO?
Well, we have a much closer border to Russia, for example. So when we look at defence, we of course need to think about how will we be able to protect ourselves, even if the US were to decide, for example, to leave NATO. This is not something that I'm expecting. However, this is something that Trump has already raised in the past, that this is an option.
And how do you think this is going to go down with what you might call the awkward squad in Europe? Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia.
He speaks a lot in his letter about how we need to protect our values, and this is when I hear him addressing especially those countries. I think it is very necessary to find mechanisms of how we can ensure that European values are being followed by all European members. This has been raised by many politicians across Europe, not specifically in those countries, of course, but also in Germany. And there is a lot of support for finding binding mechanisms. He also speaks of changing the treaties. In order to do anything about those issues, we need to change treaties. So, yes, I think this is also a little bit shooting at those countries that have been undermining European values such as rule of law.
Right. Good talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Susanne Zels from the Polis180 think tank. Thank you.
Thank you.